Hello and welcome to U.S. History e-learning for March 18th. Going to continue going through the notes that we started there yesterday. We've been talking about previously when we were in class. I'm going to try and get through the rest of these here today. So first off, we start with the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project was prior to World War II. It started prior to World War II and was completed during World War II. The Manhattan Project was basically going to produce the first nuclear weapons. What we know as the atomic bomb was established as part of the Manhattan Project. Got the name Manhattan Project because they actually started in underground labs in New York City, and as the project got bigger and bigger and bigger, they had to move it to places that had more space. That's when they moved out west to Los Alamos, New Mexico. And they brought together some of the brightest minds the country and even other countries had to offer, all in the hopes that they would be able to develop this weapon and they would do it quicker than some of their opponents. They were under the impression that the Germans had been playing around with trying to develop this, the Soviets as well. So that was the Manhattan Project, developing the atomic bomb. Next, Al Capone. We've talked about him previously in the 1920s. We bring him up again here in the 1930s because this is when he's really going to kind of make his name in the public, because this is when he's doing a lot of things outside of just providing alcohol during prohibition, which is where he made a lot of his money. They estimate that just selling and transporting that alcohol may have made him and his gang as much as $100 million annually. He was responsible for an awful lot of murders in the city of Chicago. The St. Valentine's Day massacre, for example, you had. It was pretty common for him and groups like his to pay off the police and people like that. There were some gangsters that were in a parking garage. Some police came in, or what were believed to be police came in, lined them up against a wall. They thought, "Hey, we're just going to have to pay them," and ultimately, it was members of Capone's gang that gunned them all down. The thing about it is, none of the murders could ever be pinned on him. He always had other people doing it. Nothing was ever, written down that said murder. It was all done in code. Ultimately, he winds up being convicted for tax evasion. They made a point that they wanted to make sure that he was taken down for something. Tax evasion is what they could get him on. He was ultimately jailed at Alcatraz. While he was there, his health deteriorated dramatically. He lived out the rest of his days, actually in a home in Florida. But by that point, they believe he probably had syphilis and had eaten at his brain. Was a shell of what he was when he went into Alcatraz. Babe Ruth, another name that is synonymous with the 1920s, 1930s. Major League Baseball player, considered to be one of the greatest to ever play the game, was traded. Some people would just say sold from the Boston Red Sox to the New York Yankees. That brought in what they called the curse of the Bambino. The Red Sox did not win a World Series for a long period of time. From the time that he was sold to the Yankees. Originally, he was orphaned as a child, lived in an orphanage. Really, just kind of got into trouble. Was actually a priest at the orphanage that convinced him to come out and play baseball, kind of as an outlet for a lot of the aggression and anger that he had, and ultimately wound up being a good thing because he winds up becoming the home run king of Major League Baseball. He was one of the first ones to get a major contract. He actually wound up making more than President Hoover did. When he was asked about it by the media, his quote was, "Well, why not? I had a better year than he did." Kind of showed his feelings for the president at the time.